Hey guys, it's me, Meteor. Now, I know what some of you guys are thinking. Kirby Planet Robot had one of the best stories in the Kirby series, and you would be right. However, there's a big difference between having a good story and being able to tell that story well. Metroid Other M is a prime example of this. While the story itself wasn't inherently bad, their job of explaining it was awful. When it comes to Planet Robot, however, let's just ignore the fact that almost the entire story was absent from the story mode of the game. The only way you really got the true story was by playing Meta Nightmare Returns. But that's not really that big of a deal, it goes deeper than that. One of the biggest problems with the story was the introduction of Susie. Not a single person who played this game could confirm with 100% certainty who or what Susie was. Almost every theory at that time sounded valid. For example, some thought Susie was a clone created by Stardream. This theory stemmed from the fact that the DDD clones had a description saying that the clones were imperfectly made and that they had no soul, and that Haltman was wishing for her daughter to be brought back, and an imperfect clone would betray him. That makes sense. Another theory was that this was the real Susie, who came back from another dimension to seek revenge on Haltman and destroy his company. People argued that since Susie didn't disappear into purple blobs like regular clones, she must be the real one, but a question remained as to why Haltman didn't recognize her if that was the case. So some people stemmed from that idea that she must be a robot. Others wondered how Meta Knight could possibly take his ship a few minutes after his defeat in perfect working condition to combine with Kirby if his ship was completely destroyed in the beginning of the game and crashed. One of the biggest questions, however, involved the Nova we saw in the Access arc. Yes, we know he reactivated Stardream, meaning he probably found it somewhere. But what about that Nova? Was it the Nova we saw in Superstar just repurposed for his own kind of like Mecha Knight? Was it his own creation? Or was it another Nova entirely? And let's not even get started on Meta Nightmare Returns in the True Arena. No one had any idea how Stardream could have possibly come back for a second round and rebuilt everything, considering he was completely destroyed. No one knew the answer to any of these questions. These are all unknown to us. We were very confused. All of us were. People were asking me to make canon about this game. I had no idea. That's why I was waiting for, wait for it, Meteor'z. Meteor'z started off as a great idea to add lore to the Kirby series. It let us know that Magolor was alive after Return to Dreamland. It let us know the true reason for Sectonia going crazy. It gave us so much lore and insight into Kirby, but then they started to rely on it. This was never an issue before. After playing Return to Dreamland or Triple Deluxe, no one was confused about the story. We knew Magolor's motives, we knew Tyranza's motives, we knew Sectonia's, we knew Sectonia went crazy and was no longer listening to Tyranza, we knew that Magolor was on a strive for power. Meteor'z simply gave us extra information that we did not need to know about previously to enjoy the story. Seriously, if you hold a Q&A and over half the questions are regarding the story, you didn't tell the story properly. Regardless, as long as the answers would have been good, I would have been completely happy and went on with my life. To be fair, a lot of the questions were answered. Susie was confirmed to be the real Susie, and that Halton was just brainwashed. Yes, because we could have all figured that out from the game itself. Regarding Meta Knight and the Halberd, apparently once Meta Knight left, he entrusted it with his crew, because that was also explained in the game. How about that question regarding the Nova? The one that was asked more than any other question on Meteor'z. That went unanswered, but boy, were they happy to answer another one! They were answering a question about Galactonite in the True Arena. In Meta Nightmare Returns, he was sealed back away, but in the True Arena, he comes back out of that seal, breaks out of it, and fights Kirby. So they were wondering if that was canon and if the worlds are connected. Their answer was that Meta Nightmare Returns and the True Arena were both what-if scenarios and weren't actually canon. First off, why even bother making another intro and outro animation for the True Arena specifically if it's not supposed to be canon? That seems like a complete waste of time. On top of that, I'm not sure I really even understand the answer to that question. You read, furthermore, the extra-dimensional road that opens up when Galactic Knight appears transcends space-time, so it's difficult to give it a concrete place in the timeline, but if you consider the stages in which Galactic Knight appeared in the past 3 games, I think that will give you some food for thought. What does that even mean? Alright, let's think about that. A moon, Helcondra, and the Axis Arc. Oh, now I understand. It's one thing for Meta Knight Returns and the True Arena to not be canon, but you also mentioned that we fought Galactic Knight 3 times before. So are all 3 of those battles canon? Are none of those battles canon? Is nothing beyond the extra modes or storyline canon? You didn't really specify any of this, you just gave me more questions. Some may argue they do this so they could get fans to speculate more in the fan base. But if that's true, why even bother answering questions at all instead of questions that kill speculation? Admittedly, after I heard this, my urge to discuss Kirby canon dropped immensely. I had to make myself a video just to convince myself that all hope was not lost in terms of Kirby's story. Team Kirby Clash Deluxe may even be worse in this regard for the fact I'm not even sure if the game is canon. My first gut would tell me no, and this takes place in an alternate universe known as the Dream Kingdom rather than Dreamland. But if it's not canon, then why would the game talk about past events with Darkmind and Choo-Choo and show Tyranza with a flower from the Dreamstalk that Sectonia died in? If it is canon, how on earth did Darkmind come back? Why is Tyranza fighting like Sectonia and look like Sectonia? Does it retcon Sectonia's true form? And what mirror is that? Why is it dark? Nothing is explained! And perhaps that's my biggest issue with this whole thing, is that Hal and the fans respectively are putting way too much reliance on Miiverse for information. Just put all that information into the game and we'll be fine. We'll have the full story right there. Rainbow Curse did that. Not one person after playing Rainbow Curse was like, oh man, I'm so confused, let me wait for Miiverse to make a post about it. There never was one, and we got the full story. It was fine. When I first heard the Switch didn't have a former Miiverse, I was genuinely happy because then I wouldn't have to wait over 2 months just to get story in a Kirby game. Of course, since then, 3 Kirby games have been announced for the 3DS, so we have to deal with this for a little bit longer. Either way, I said my piece. I'm storming out of here. See you guys next time.